Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Gavin. You're in the right place if you like true crime, but you like to just cut past the fluff, cut past sensationalism, and just kind of get into the nitty gritty. That's what we do here on the channel. Today, I'm not going to bury the lead. I've got a guest that is joining us thanks to you guys. Last week when I started covering the case of Kevin Mullins, who was shot to death on camera by the sheriff of his county, guy named Mickey Steins, you guys were like, you need to bring on hillbilly crime. So that's what I did. I reached out, and I'm just grateful to invite Elizabeth Jones from Hillbilly Crime onto the show. Elizabeth, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to
Oh
be
my
here.
goodness. Well, you and I have been texting back and forth for the last week. You have been working hard on this case. Uh, Tell me, what is your connection to the case? What draws you to this case?
I have a master's degree in criminal justice, and
Oh,
I live here in Letcher County. I never was really able to use my education in this area.
okay.
So when this opportunity came up with the YouTube channel, it gives me the ability to use a little bit of my knowledge.
So you actually went to school, you did your undergraduate, your grad school stuff in criminal justice, but never worked in criminal justice?
Yeah, I've been like a substance abuse counselor. I've been a case
Wow.
manager, stuff like that. But I worked really, really hard in school and graduated magna cum laude with my bachelor's degree and kept a 4.0 through graduate school and got my master's. And so it's really
Wow.
interests me, all of this true crime. And I live in Letcher County. So when this incident happened with Mickey and Kevin, it just seemed natural to cover it.
Yeah, this is the incident right here, right? So when you say Mickey and Kevin, I usually am like Judge Mullins, Sheriff Steins, but you know these people, right?
Yeah, yeah. Kevin has, where we're in such a small rural area, there's only about 20,000 people in Letcher County. And so usually everybody knows everybody. Mickey has been the bailiff. He was Judge Mullins' bailiff for about 10 years or a little bit longer before he ran for sheriff. And then when he became sheriff, he just moved back across the street behind the courthouse. And one of his employees then, Ben Fields, took over the
The
courtroom
bailiff
security.
position. Oh my goodness. Describe the courthouse for us real quick. I mean, how big of a place are we talking about?
We're talking about a very small space. When you walk in, there's downstairs and there's an upstairs. The downstairs has the clerk's office. It also has the district courtroom, the judge's chambers, and like the juvenile court area. And
Mhm.
then downstairs in the basement is the Letcher County Jail.
Oh, it's in the courthouse itself.
Yes. And the
So,
sheriff's department just sits right behind the courthouse.
oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to get into some details here, but I did not know that, and so I just made the connection. Okay. All right. I made a connection. Okay, so Mickey Steins, again, we're talking about this guy right here. He is Judge Mullins' bailiff for 10 years. These
Mhm.
guys know each other. Would you describe them as friends?
Yes. 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 They were friends for a very long time.
So 10 years in the courtroom together, and then, I mean, in my county, the sheriff's office actually is pretty involved in the court proceedings because they transfer
Mhm.
prisoners, they guard, the courthouse and so forth. So is it the same way there in Letcher County? Did the sheriff's office, would he, for the 22 years he was sheriff, did he interface with Judge Mullins often?
Well, he worked as his bailiff for 10 years. And then when he ran for sheriff, he just went over across the street to the sheriff's office. But they had a smoking room in the courthouse. They still smoked in our courthouse.
Up until like
Yeah.
now kind of
If
thing?
you look, if you look at that picture that you just put up, Judge Mullins has a cigarette in his hand in his chambers, right before,
On the
right,
video?
yeah, right as
Oh,
Mickey. Um, Kevin's
oh
got a
my
cigarette.
goodness. He he does.
Yeah,
No, listen, I'm not making fun of Letcher County, but that is wow. So in
very informal.
Kentucky, oh, well, I mean, this is the South, right? I mean, this is where tobacco is from in the United States, it's where it's grown. I'm sure the tobacco lobby is pretty powerful down there. Okay, that is nuts. Okay, so there's a smoking room in the courthouse.
It's right next door to his chambers and
Okay,
the courtroom. So usually Mickey and Kevin, and then you had whoever was the jailer at the time, or the deputies who were working there in the courthouse. That's where they hung out at. They kind of called it the lounge.
uh
And
huh,
if you were somebody who was aware, or maybe a little bit uh, friendly with them, you could go back and just knock on that door if you needed to talk to Kevin, and he'd come out and talk to you. Kevin was he was a very approachable person. He was, in my experience, my own personal experience, he was a very fair judge. He was fair in the courtroom, but that was my experience.
okay,
I, I had a different one than some other people, you know.
sure. So, all right, we're slowly walking toward like where the rubber hits the road here. But Mickey and Kevin are, I mean, they're more than friendly, they're friends, right?
Yeah,
Now, the story goes they went to lunch together. Is that how it worked? The day that Judge Mullins was killed, they went to lunch together. Is that correct?
that is. From what we understand, there were several people that were at that lunch.
Walk us through that.
Well, the Street Side Bar and Grill is where they were at, and it's just maybe 3 or 4 buildings down from the courthouse on Main Street. So they went there quite often, from what I understand, and had lunch. And something was said at the lunch, and Judge Mullins, from what's been reported, Judge Mullins stopped Mickey, and said, "Do we need to talk in my chambers after lunch? Why don't you come up and see me?" And so that's what
So,
happened at lunch.
was Sheriff Steins, I mean, so if he got stopped, was he angry at this lunch or, I mean,
I don't know. Everybody has said, everybody that was there, the people that were there that have reported on it, have said that it was just a normal day. It was a
huh,
normal lunch. Nobody really saw anything, or nobody has reported seeing anything.
all right. Are you friendly with anybody that was there at that lunch?
I've not spoken with anyone that was there. No.
Okay. All right. Now, in your work as a substance abuse counselor and so forth, did you do that there in Letcher County with, uh, those that are suffering from substance abuse?
In Pike County was where I worked.
Okay.
And I did, people that I worked with were kind of from all from around in the local area. So we had Letcher County, Pike County, and surrounding counties.
Yeah, I do notice sometimes when because I'll cover in my county, I'll cover what we call, it's just called drug court, right? It's a program that is used to help addicts trying to
Hmm.
kick the addiction. Well, you never really kick the addiction, but overcome their addiction and kick their criminal behavior. It's a pretty cool program. But I do see as I'm covering drug court, as I'm covering other hearings, that in because I live in a small place in Western Pennsylvania, those those that perpetrate crimes tend to do so not just in their own county. They usually have cases sometimes in 3 or 4 neighboring counties, right? So I'd imagine that's probably the same down there in Kentucky.
Yeah. And here, drug court is upstairs in the felony court.
Mm-hmm.
In Judge Mullins handled the misdemeanors and the district court. And the program that they used in his court wasn't exactly drug court. They were sending them to rehab. They were
Oh,
sending
right.
people directly to rehab, an inpatient rehab. And so it was a little bit different. I think it was called the Senate 90 bill that he used
Okay.
for court.
I even saw a video online of it was like a success story that both Mickey Steins and Kevin Mullins were in with somebody who had succeeded. Is that one that you know about?
Well, my whole thing with it is how many. So everybody's kind of throwing this up here that this was a big successful program, but in my mind, success is measured by how many people on the other side of that actually come through that success and successfully recover, right?
Okay.
And in one of the interviews that Judge Mullins had given in a SOAR, which is a little organization around here, shaping Appalachia, um, they only had 5 people that they
Okay.
said were working and doing well. So if you've got, 2,000 people, I'm just throwing a number out there, but if you got
Yeah.
2,000 people you're sending to rehab, look at the cost of that. And then
Sure.
only 5 have a successful.
Yeah, in my county, I think that their success rate in drug court, where they measure success, there's a couple of different metrics, right? But it's
Mm,
uh, can they hold a job? Do they have a permanent place to live? Are they not bouncing around? Are they not using? Have they been able to mend family relationships? They have different metrics, right? But I
mhm.
think only 15 or 16 people go through that program a year, and the failure rate's going to be really high just because of the nature of addiction. You know that better than I do, right? It's very difficult to kick substance addiction. Um, and anyway, okay. So getting back to Judge Mullins, so he says to Sheriff Steins, "Do we need to have a conversation alone?" And they go back to his chambers. Did Sheriff Steins know that there was a camera in that room?
I'm sure he did. But I think the way that I understood it, they parted ways after that lunch. And then um, Mickey didn't come back to the courthouse until like 3 o'clock.
Okay.
That happened all about 3 o'clock. And from what the
Yeah.
lead detective said in the hearing, was that Mickey had had some kind of a communication with a female employee in his in the sheriff's department. I'm not sure if that was a text message, or that's kind of how I took it. What the detective said, that it was a text message,
All right.
and then he went up. He went back up to the courthouse. And Judge Mullins was in his chambers with, I think it was 3 or 4 other people. They had been in the courtroom dealing with a case,
Mm-hmm.
and so after that, they had just went into his chambers and was in there discussing the case when Mickey came in and kind of said he needed to speak with the judge alone.
How long was he in the judge's chambers before the shooting occurred?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because of course, probably in the prelim, they're not showing the entire video.
Mm,
They're showing what needs to be shown to show probable cause, right?
yeah.
But yeah, the timestamp on that video is 14:52, so 2:52 p.m. It's about, yeah, right up on 3 o'clock. So yeah, that makes me wonder how long they were together before Stein stands up and draws his service weapon on the judge. That's
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a very shocking video.
It is a shocking video. Did you attend the prelim?
I just watched it on. I streamed it.
Oh, did you? Did you live stream it? Nice. So they have cameras in the courtroom, and you're able to watch that. Man, I wish
They
Pennsylvania
are
did that.
they are sharing this trial anyway.
Oh, okay. So there's a lot of public attention on this trial, so maybe they feel a little pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me back up, and since you live there, tell me a little bit about Mickey Steins. Like your impression of the guy.
Well, I can tell you right now, Mickey is a very beloved um, community member. Um, I had never heard the first rumor about Mickey when it came to inappropriate behavior, like what they're saying about Judge Mullins. I
Yeah.
had never heard not the first rumor, not the first whisper, or anything about any of that. So I really didn't believe it at first.
Really?
But yeah, everybody loves Mickey. I was kind of surprised. I was always surprised anytime I heard someone say that they didn't like him. Um, but he is from this area. He grew up here. His family is here. His wife is from here. They're just community members. They've helped a lot of people. Whenever you go to court, that's usually a very stressful time. And
Sure.
so the security officers really do a lot of guidance there at the courthouse. People are all upset for whatever purpose they're there for.
Yeah.
And so the bailiffs and the security officers, they're usually seen as a calming presence, you know?
Well, and it's a little odd to me actually, like if if he was so beloved, that transcends, like there's going to be a percentage of the population that interfaces with the law differently than you and I do, right? They are on the receiving end of law enforcement. Um, and so there will be a certain percentage of the population that is on that receiving end, and they typically will not like whomever the police captain, the sheriff, the lieutenant, whomever. Um, but with Mickey Steins, he was, I guess he would have been, what, regarded as fair even to those that are kind of on the wrong end of the law.
It was very well known that Mickey hated drugs.
Yeah,
He he hated drugs. So, he wasn't out doing anything, you know, really getting under people's skin. There was a situation last year. I actually just saw the article in the newspaper today, and they had caught like 50 kids underage drinking up in the mountain, up on one of the mountains. And instead of hauling them all to jail, he didn't do that. He called all their parents. He made all their parents come get them. He really took that opportunity to show a little compassion to all those kids.
mm,
And so he's done those certain things like that, that touched people.
yeah, yeah. Now in Letcher County, what is the county seat? What town are we talking about here?
Well, Whitesburg is where the courthouse is.
Okay. The what does Whitesburg have a police force in addition to the sheriff's office?
Yeah, they have Whitesburg City.
Okay. So but the sheriff is doing important and unpopular things, serving warrants, doing sheriffly duties, right? But okay, so he's beloved. I believe you. I'm just sitting here going, man, like I love our sheriff too, but if I were on the other end of it, I don't think that I would love him all that much. Um, but okay, what about Judge Mullins? And
Well, Judge Mullins was part of our community too. One of the big things or one of the main times I would see him is just at the gas station down here in Jenkins. Um, Me and him both live in Jenkins. Um, and you would see him in the evening time down at the gas station. He'd always be getting his daughters some little snacks to put in their lunch for the next day or something. And he was very approachable. People always would talk to Kevin. Kevin would talk to you. He didn't have a high and mighty, you know, attitude that
yeah.
he was better than everybody. Um, so, and we are so informal. They were still smoking in the courthouse. We didn't have any metal detectors in the courthouse. Our schools don't even have metal detectors. Um,
Well, and
you
that's
know,
something that I saw that they've now put metal detectors in the courthouse, but that wouldn't have stopped this. Those kinds of reactions kill me, man. Like obviously figuratively, and I'm sorry that I use that term, but come on, like you use this as an opportunity to, I don't know, make some kind of statement that the public will see that they're somehow safer. It never would have changed. He is
right.
an officer of the law. He goes in and out of the court armed all the time, right?
Yep. 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 It wouldn't have stopped that. I think
Yeah.
it We needed it. We needed a metal detector in our courthouse just to make us modern like the rest of the world, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but it wouldn't have stopped this.
Yeah. That's no, I mean, you're right. It probably is better to have security there at the courthouse. Um Yeah, I live in a rural area, and the court is probably the only place that you may not carry a gun. It's perfectly natural to see people carrying a gun all over the place. But the court, yeah, we have the metal detectors and all that stuff too. All right, so Judge Mullins had minor children.
He does. Yes, he has two daughters.
Okay, who have lost their dad over this.
Yep.
All right.
And Mickey had a daughter that was 17.
Mickey is, did you say Mickey? I'm sorry. So Sheriff
Mickey
Steins has a 17-year-old daughter. Okay. Help clear this up for me, or maybe make me understand, because one of the things that was reported in the beginning with this case, and I have a personal rule that anything that's reported in the first week is probably wrong. Just the way it tends to be. But there was some reporting that uh, maybe there was an issue that Sheriff Steins had because he called or texted his daughter from the judge's phone. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I personally think it's a little bit of a red herring.
Okay.
Uh, I do. Um, Mickey's daughter, from what has been reported, has denied anything like that there was any type of inappropriate relationship going on with Judge Mullins. So I think that is a big red herring.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, but you know,
Sure. However, if I can just play devil's advocate here, because I am on your side on this, everything I've read, it feels like, come on, it's just,
mm,
and I'm guilty of it too. As a local reporter, you grab onto something that will make people read or watch, right? So I totally get it. But playing devil's advocate here, it wouldn't even matter if there was an inappropriate relationship or not if Sheriff Steins thought there was an inappropriate relationship. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So, uh, was it true? I mean, this has been reported. Was it true that he called his daughter using the judge's phone?
that is, yes. He called her from his own phone. From what I understand, he'd actually left that day and went to go see his daughter.
Okay.
Um, Now, one of the national reporters reported that Mickey had been kicked out of his house the night before by his wife. I don't know that now that's her source has reported that, so that's part that's coming out now.
Hmm.
She said that was why he didn't have his uniform on. That was one of the reasons why he wasn't dressed in uniform.
He
Um,
normally was in uniform.
yes, yeah, you
Okay.
usually saw him in uniform, but that he had went to see his daughter that day earlier that day. Now I don't know if he did, if he was able to see her or not, make contact. But then, whenever he had went into the judge's chambers, they reported that he tried to call her from his phone and she didn't answer. So he borrowed the judge's phone and called her from his phone, and
Okay. The
that's what. And
implication the implication being that he called her from the judge's phone, she picked up because there's some kind of like inappropriate relationship here, but it's probably more like she's not taking my call because things are not happy in Zion at home, and maybe if I use somebody else's number she might pick up. Is that
Well, that's what the lead detective said. The one that was at the hearing.
okay?
That's what he stated. And if you watch that video, um, Kevin, it looks like it's Kevin's phone that is laying on the table. And as Mickey is heading out back out the door, you see Judge Mullins's phone light up. So it looks like someone is calling the phone back, but it was during
Oh,
the actual shooting.
so as
So
he's leaving,
you'll see the phone on the table
the
light up.
phone is there. It sure does. I'm not even showing you guys. Hang on. You have to really pay attention to it. Right now, it's not lit up, and then right there it does.
Yeah,
Bang, bang. So somebody
yeah.
was calling back. Wow, look at that. Yeah, right
And
before he
as
crosses in front of it.
he goes out the door, this it's just so surprising. As he goes out the door, something catches his attention. He knows he bends back down and finishes it off.
So he fired a total of 3 times, I think. I mean,
8.
he fired 8 times.
Judge Mullins was hit 8 times.
8 times. So the video that's been released to the public is kind of edited or I don't, wherever I got it, the news media probably edited it, right? He raises his gun and then it skips ahead, that sort of thing. So 8 times.
I have a recording that it's not from in there. All you can hear is the shots.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't ever put it up on YouTube because I didn't know what I was allowed to post and what I wasn't.
Yeah, you got to be very careful about, especially when we're talking about firearms, got to be very careful about that for sure. So, but what did it sound like? I mean, was it,
It's just you hear 7 or 8. It sounds like 7, and then the eighth one kind of sounds like an echo or something. But then they've reported that he was hit 8 times, so it's the 8 shots.
wow.
I
What?
also I did see some other video that somebody else had taken that audio and
Mhm.
they had added some stuff to it, and it's not the original one. It's
Oh,
been all.
okay. You got to be careful with what's out there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he is arrested shortly after. I mean, I don't think he ever leaves the courthouse, right? He's arrested there.
Well, that's something that has just come to light.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, so that detective got up in that hearing and said that Mickey came out. I guess that Mickey had went into the courtroom and laid his thing down and they arrested him. That's not exactly true. So Mickey went out the side door when he
Okay.
left. He went out the side door there onto the sidewalk, and there was a lot of people out there, screaming and running and hiding and scared. One woman messaged me the other day and gave me her firsthand account. she was upstairs and was leaving, and she ran into Mickey on the sidewalk, and she ran up and gave him a hug and said, "There's an active pew pew person in there in the courtroom." And this was
Oh,
right after Mickey had done this. And and then one of the
did he say
lawyers,
anything to her?
not, no,
Oh,
she said she couldn't believe it when everybody told her that Mickey was the one that
couldn't
was
possibly be
responsible.
Sheriff Steins, right? Couldn't possibly be him. Everybody loves him.
She said, "I just seen him. I just gave him a hug. I just warned him." And so, and then another lawyer that works at the Appalachian Law Center down the street from the courthouse, he had given an interview to the NPR.
Yeah,
uh, and he said that when he came outside his office and looked, he saw Mickey pacing back and forth on the sidewalk up there in front of the courthouse. And so then I reckon Mickey walked in the front door. The lady that I had spoken to said, "I thought it was odd. He didn't have his thing drawn like all the
yeah.
rest of the police did." And she said, "I just thought it was so odd." And then she said he wasn't running in there like everybody else was. He was kind of slow moving, getting in the court, back into the courthouse. So he came out the side door, walked up the block, and then went back in the front door.
Wonder what was going through his mind at that point, right? What is going through your mind? That I mean, these guys are friends. He's stressed about something that's happening at home. Full on draws down on his friend in his office. Fires 8 shots after 32 years working for the court or for the county. And my
And
goodness,
he had just given the deposition with Ned Pillersdorf, who is the attorney that filed the civil suit against his deputy
that had
for
happened that day.
that Monday. So it was, 2 or 3 days
3 days
before.
later.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into that a little bit. Okay. Because that is something that really kind of brought the case back into the national zeitgeist. Is News Nation broke the story that there is a witness in a criminal prosecution against one of Sheriff Stein's deputies. And it's the one person, once again, that I didn't get a picture of for this. Like, his name is Ben Fields, Deputy Fields. Can't believe I didn't do that. But there was a witness in that case, which was a criminal case,
Mm-hmm.
that then, I mean, had some repercussions. Well, I mean, ultimately on Judge Mullins, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so this happened in 2022. That the interviews that we got the interviews actually just a couple days ago, for Ben Field's investigation. So when Mickey became, I was going to send you a picture of him, but I can't do that and talk at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's
So
okay. It's
don't
okay.
worry. All right. So when Mickey ran for sheriff and he won, he went to the sheriff's department and he sent his one of his deputies over to the courthouse. Well, I don't know if he sent him or if Judge Mullins picked him or how it ended up being, but one of his deputies ended up taking his place as bailiff for Kevin.
Okay.
Um, a, an, a victim came forward and had been on house arrest. Now, these were um, Ben Fields. Mickey used to be the one who did the house arrest when he
Okay.
worked as bailiff. He was the one who was responsible for all the ankle monitors and the house arrest. Well,
Did he
then when,
also work for the ankle monitor company?
yeah, and it was an independent contracting position. So that was a 1099 position.
Okay.
Um, to do the ankle monitors. And Mickey was the only person in the county who had that contract. And
Okay.
from what I understand, Mickey owns that ankle monitor equipment. I'm
Does
not
he
sure,
own that company?
not the company, but
Okay.
from what I understand, he owns the equipment. I think there was some kind of a little thing back and forth with the new owners of the company. They didn't have all of their P's and Q's um, in the
Yeah.
sale of the company or the transfer of the company or something to do with that. But Mickey was the one who was doing it first. And then he hired Ben, I guess, to do it. But Ben took over the ankle monitor
Okay.
stuff. So one of the women came forward and said that she had been trading sexual favors
Yeah, yeah.
for that he would keep her ankle monitor off. He didn't make her pay the fees associated with it, and it ended up being a big mess.
Okay, so this woman was she was interacting with the law. She was in the Letcher County Jail, right, which is in the basement of the courthouse. We've established. So one of the conditions of her release from the jail was that she would be on home confinement. Therefore, she had to have a GPS ankle monitor on. Mr. Fields was the guy that was going to attach that ankle monitor. And the allegation is that if she performed sexual favors for him, he would not put the ankle monitor on. If I got that right?
That's what it looks like, and he didn't make her pay for it. But there, I don't know how you want to talk about the recordings.
Yeah, we just don't want to say like the R word. We want to SA is probably what we should say, but I mean, we're all
Yeah.
grown-ups here, so we can talk about it. So,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
well, so there was two women altogether who made the allegations and the accusations. So Ned Pillersdorf is the attorney who filed the civil suit.
Yeah.
Once he filed that civil suit, the attorney general, then the Kentucky Attorney General's office, came in and started having these interviews. And
Oh, that's what precipitated those interviews. The civil suit, the AG's office was like, "Wait a minute, we're talking about a sheriff's deputy here, a sworn officer." So that's why those interviews started.
mhm, yeah,
Okay.
from her lawyer, Ned Pillersdorf. We heard it in the recording. The detectives say that he got a call from Ned.
Okay. All right, gotcha. Um, Now, in that recording, the section that News Nation shared, I can bring this over here. The section that News Nation shared, the I guess we would call her the plaintiff in that civil suit. Her name is Sabrina Adkins. We're not like outing her at all here, guys. For 2 years, her name has been out there. Her picture has been out there. But Sabrina
Mhm.
Adkins says, I have seen video of not only, well, she knew that Ben Fields was doing it because she was on the receiving end. And uh, I know that in the recordings, it's a little off putting because at least to me, the AG's investigators are using phrases like sexual relationship when it's not a relationship at all. It is the R word. It is SA, right? She cannot agree to a to a sexual encounter with that power imbalance. He is her jailer, she is his inmate, right? So it
Mhm.
is not a sexual relationship. That's not even close to what it is. But I think that the AG's detective was kind of I think that he knows that. He was just kind of trying to get her to say more and more. But anyway, so she had had sexual encounters with Mr. Fields, oral and then, full on sexual intercourse with Mr. Fields. And then she said that she saw a video as well. Can you describe kind of that whole thing?
Well, she said that someone had some VHS tapes. In the recording, you can hear her name a certain person and say that he had tapes that went back 15 years
Okay.
on Judge Mullins, Mickey Steins, all of it. She said the higher ups, Ben and the higher ups. And he asks her, flat out, who did you see? And she said, Judge Mullins.
So do you think that, I mean, I haven't listened to the all the tapes yet. There's like 6 hours of interviews here, including interviews of Mr. Fields, and another victim who, a woman named Jennifer Hill, who is a co-plaintiff on the civil suit. She has passed away. I think is, and I don't know the circumstances of her passing. I think I can guess what the circumstances of her passing are. Am I
Yeah.
right? Do you think in my guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they say it was anyway. There's a lot
Okay.
of suspicious, you know, a
Yeah.
lot of suspicious timing on a lot of that.
Yeah. And yeah, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but we certainly want to take the timing seriously. But both Ms. Adkins, Ms. Hill were in jail those many times each because of their criminal behavior that had to do with their substance abuse or their substance addiction, I guess I would call it, right?
Yeah, and we heard Jennifer Hill on her interview say that when she was released from jail on Friday, that Ben Fields had propositioned her and she turned him down. She said, "No, my husband can pay for my ankle monitor." And Monday, Ben was back picking her up, taking her to jail. So she had
Like he had
already,
fabricated some reason to pick her up.
yeah, and the way that it looks to me, he didn't even need to fabricate anything. If he wanted to just go and pick him up and take him back to the jail, looks like that's what he did.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so uh, getting back to the testimony, the witness testimony from Ms. Atkins, she definitely said that Judge Mullins was involved. Did she mention Sheriff Steins?
She did. She said that she heard that he was on the recordings too. Um, I don't think I can't speak for her, of course. I'm
Sure,
just listening to the recordings the same as everybody else.
sure.
But I guess we'll see.
Okay, so let me like I really want to be devil's advocate about everything, see things from all sides, right? And
Yeah.
my audience knows this, but just for everybody's enlightenment, I don't necessarily believe anything that I say when I'm giving the devil's advocate side. That's the definition of being the devil's advocate. But
Right,
um,
right.
when they say VHS tapes going back 15 years, I don't think I've seen a VHS tape in 15 years. Why
Oh,
would there
really?
be VHS tapes?
Well, like I said, we are kind of like the last ones to modernize. This little house that I live in right now, I bought it last year, and the little old man that lived here, he still had a working VHS, and
Well,
he's,
I mean, that's cute, but if I wanted to buy a camera to video my nefarious deeds,
yeah.
where would I find a VHS camera? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of, the way that I took it was that it was something that has, where this has been going on for quite some time, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. How long has Judge Mullins been a judge?
He was appointed in 2009, from what I
Okay.
understand. There was a vacancy, and so they put him in to fill that vacancy, and then he ran in the election in 2010, and he won, and he's been there ever since.
What did he do before that?
I think he was an attorney. I think he was a defense attorney, if I'm correct.
Okay. So, I mean, in a little place, I mean, is it unfair for me to describe Judge Mullins and Mickey Steins as being kind of part of an old boys club? Is that
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right.
that's what it is, right?
Uh-huh.
So that club would exist not just for the sheriff and for the judges, it would be for all the men kind of in and around court business, right?
Yeah,
So is it
that makes sense.
possible it's possible that Judge Mullins was participating in that sort of stuff before he was judge? Is
It's
that
possible.
possible? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, interesting.
And it's also possible that you've got other people that were participating in this kind of behavior that just has not come out yet.
Well, if they're stupid enough to be on video doing it, that's the thing, is there any indication in any of there's over 20,000 pages that you got from your public records request.
Hmm.
I can't imagine that in a week's time you've read 20,000 pages.
Hmm.
But is there any indication that I, is there any indication of any names of other people that might be a part of it?
I don't know, honestly. I haven't seen. This is how it kind of looks to me. You haven't had anybody come out and deny any of this. You haven't had the Attorney General's office come out in defense of the investigation and the interviews, the way those interviews were done.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any organization or department coming out denying any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And whenever Ben Fields took a plea for some really heinous charges, he didn't deny them either. He pled guilty.
He was convicted of the R word, right?
Mm,
Sodomy.
mm-hmm.
And I think there was something else.
Perjury.
What was it?
Perjury.
Okay. Yeah. And tell everybody what was his punishment for doing that to Sabrina Adkins.
He got 6 months in jail. And then I think he has to serve 5 years supervised probation after that. And then he gets 2 years unsupervised probation after that.
And is he
So
in the
this,
community?
I don't know. But what we have found through the recordings is that Ben's sister was over the drug court program, and his wife was a deputy at the jail. And so when he served his 6 months in jail, his wife was working there.
Was one of his jailers? You got
Um,
to be kidding me.
no. And I had a former employee of the jail reach out to me just a night or two ago and said that when Ben came in to serve his 6 months, that they went and bought him a mattress. They bought a big TV for him, and they gave him a one-person cell, so he was all in the cell all by himself, and his wife was allowed to go in there and hang out with him. That's what I was told by a former jail employee.
Wow. Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. There are so many perks to living in a small rural area, which Kimberly and I, my wife and I, decided to do. We brought our family here on purpose, and I love it. But
Yes.
that kind of stuff, man, that kind of stuff just kills me. I hate that stuff.
Where do you turn? There's nowhere to turn.
No, no. Well, and I mean, one of the reasons that this case has kind of piqued my interest is The one thing in true crime that just galls me is overt, obvious corruption, where they don't even try to hide it. They are just corrupt. And it happens, I mean, it happens in big places. Philadelphia in the Ellen Greenberg case, Buffalo in the Amanda Winkowski case, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the David Elmquist case. I mean, it happens in big places too.
Yeah.
But in small places, man, it gets real personal and gets really overt and overpowering. And you're exactly right. Where do you go? There's
Yeah.
no relief.
There's no help.
Yeah,
Even even with this case here, what it looks like to me is that they um, threw Ben as the patsy and the fall guy. He took the plea bargain, and it looks to me like they were satisfied with that. As long as they could, punish him, they didn't look any further. They did not investigate any further with any higher ups. They did not
oh, you're right,
investigate.
because it's the civil side of things that's really kind of pushing things forward. There was no criminal investigation into Judge Mullins, correct?
Mm-mm,
No criminal investigations into Mickey Steins.
mm-mm.
Have you looked at I mean, any in Letcher County, any court records alleging any type of SA or anything like that?
I haven't seen anything. I haven't found anything yet. But now, Mickey's lawyers in that hearing, that preliminary hearing, when his lawyer asked the questions to the lead detective, he asked him if they were aware of any um, complaint that Mickey had tried to file against Kevin Mullins. And he, if I remember correctly, he said no. So I'm not sure what Mickey's lawyer was alluding to there. We haven't.
Yeah, and prelims are kind of strange. They're kind of funny because unlike a trial, the defense doesn't get a chance to prepare for the hearing. It's all a prosecution show, right? So
Yeah.
they're sitting at a table just seeing evidence kind of and testimony and so forth piling on.
Mhm.
Oftentimes there's really nothing to ask. Well, what do I do here to try to make it feel like there's no probable cause here? So who knows what he was getting at, if anything at all, right? Prelims are just kind of weird that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, listen, um we've got some questions. What happens is people put my initials in the live chat, and that helps me to see what their questions are. Let me just scroll through here real quick. Let's see. First of all, Lee was the person who told me about your channel in the first place. So Lee, thank you very much for putting me in touch with Elizabeth. Ariel Lee says, Gavin, those are the most dangerous in the small community. Everyone knows and loves them. Yeah, actually, talk about camouflage. If you're a person who is doing nefarious things, but everybody thinks that you're the best thing since sliced bread, that's good camouflage, man.
Yeah. My question is, you see all that in front of him right there?
Yeah,
That was a constant thing. We one of their favorite things to do at the sheriff's department was to lay it all out like that and take pictures of it and then put it on Facebook and show everybody what they just took off the street.
these are drug busts, right?
Oh, and just pulling people over, it's just any kind of confiscation.
Okay.
But you've got money, you've got the drugs, you've got weapons, you've got all of this stuff. And he had reported in the newspaper that by the time that big bust had happened in his career as sheriff, they had taken 11 pounds of meth off the street. That's just of one substance. So that's a whole lot of
Almost
money.
5 kilos of meth.
That's a whole lot of stuff that, I would really like to see um, how well all of this stuff was documented. I'd like
Yeah.
to see the evidence logs.
And in those kind of busts where they're finding, I don't know, $4 or $5,000, it'd be very easy for $500 to just not be there when they
Oh,
lay
yeah.
it out, right? Or $1,000 or whatever. Uh, Man. Okay, Tim Collins, Gavin, has any other police in the county, including city cops, given any bad impressions or bad behavior or corruption to anyone else? Are there any other signs of any kind of corruption there in the county? Any other, policing agencies or anything?
We see it every day. It's the way of
So,
life here.
well, you don't have to get specific, but tell me more about that. Why do you say that?
Well, it's the way that they abuse and they use the system to threaten people and hurt people. I went through my own situation down there. I had let one of my sons ride his bicycle uh, to the mouth of the holler to the fire department, and he ended up going to my neighbor's house instead of coming home like he was supposed to, and we couldn't find him. And so we ended up reaching out for help to try and help find my child.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being a nightmare. It was the biggest nightmare ever was. They threatened me with emergency removal hearings. I ended up having to go hire Ned Pillersdorf, the same lawyer
Are you
who,
serious?
yeah, he was my attorney. He didn't like me very well, though. When it was my situation, he was like, "Who did you make mad? Like, what did you do? This doesn't happen. They don't do this."
Okay,
Um,
well, what do you think it
well,
was?
because they kept wanting me to voluntarily sign and allow them to open a social services case with
Mm.
me and my child. And no, I'm not voluntarily signing, letting you do that. No. And they tried, well, we've got this program where we'll give you $500 and you can, if you got any broken steps or if your refrigerator is tore up or whatever you need. And I don't need your $500. I don't want your money. No, we're not going to be voluntarily signing and allowing you to open a social services case on me. No, thank you. Well, I saw how it was going. They were harassing me, threatening me. So I went and got an attorney. I
Mm-hmm.
hired Ed Pillersdorf. He wrote a letter to the social services department and told them that he was now representing me and that they needed to contact him from then on. They did not respect that. They never contacted Ned. They just kept harassing me. They kept calling me. One of the social workers called me at 5 o'clock on some evening and said, "You have court. You have an emergency removal hearing in the morning at 9 o'clock, and you better be there." And I said, "You need to call my lawyer. This is 5 o'clock in the evening, and he's a big time lawyer. He couldn't do something like that without even 1 day notice. He was
Mm-hmm.
busy. He already had plans for that next day."
Sure.
So I called them and I told them, and he said, "Well, you go on to the court date and ask them for a continuance. Tell them that your lawyer couldn't be there." So I did, and but this is how they do things. Like they said they were supposed to serve me with a notice and letting me know that they were even going to have court. They didn't. They just called and said, "You better be there." And then when we went in the next day to the courtroom, which it went in front of Judge Mullins,
No way.
yeah, when we went in there, the social worker just kept hounding me and hounding me and hounding me about voluntarily signing and allowing them to open this case. And I refused to do it. I would not do it. Now, I kind of always thought, highly of, well, maybe not highly, but I thought well of Judge Mullins because he knew it was all BS and he was not about to take my children from me.
Hmm.
He knew it was all BS, but he could have also threw it out and he
Right.
did. He did. But he
But
didn't let it go no further either.
so this is the this is the kind of throwing around power that you're talking about in this county. It is just a way of life down there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Holy cow. That's
And if you're not on the right side of that line, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah. No, and I have to say, I I don't want to give away too much personal information, and you've been really brave to give away a lot of personal information here, but uh like in my town, we moved to this town as outsiders. We came here from California, and one of the reasons that brought us here was that real estate was really cheap. And so something that would cost us millions of dollars back in California would only cost us a couple $100,000 out here. So we ended up buying uh, in this area of a very well known home. It has its own name, the whole thing, right? So
oh,
uh, immediately we were in the inner circle, immediately, because everybody thought that we were some rich California county or family, and we bought this fancy house and all that stuff. So we were immediately in the inner circle. And I've thought several times, like, what would happen if I just bought a house in town? Just a, not a good house, not a bad house, just a house, like I would not have the associates that I have. I would not have the friends that I have. I would not have the colleagues that I interact with. Just and I love my town. I don't want to like really disparage it. I love my town, but that is the way little places tend to work. That's the
yeah.
way it is.
With
Yeah.
my situation, when they came after me with my kids the way that they did, it was because I called them out. I called them out on what a bad job they were doing, and
Looking for your child or
I was told that they brought every police officer in Letcher County down there. They brought a social worker. I mean, that whoever was on call, like they all came out, and the state policeman that was there, he looked at me and now mind you, I had just graduated with my bachelor's degree 4 days before this happened, and that cop looked at me and said, you've only got one thing going for you. You got two things going for you. He said, you got all your teeth and you ain't got sores all over your face.
oh, that guy's not in the right line of work.
No. And my pastor was there, my pastor's wife, my boy's baseball coach, like everybody came out. If somebody put it on Facebook, have you seen Alan? And the next thing you knew, everybody in the county was out. And he had just went to my neighbor's house. It wasn't no
Yeah.
really a big deal. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And but what they ended up doing was one of those policemen who I had made so mad by saying what I did. He went to the county attorney, Edison Banks. They went to a grand jury and they had me indicted on child neglect. They had me indicted on wanton endangerment, all of these charges. And then they used the indictment as substantiated
Yeah.
matter to open a child services case on me. And then they came and arrested me and took me to the jail. And then when the judge released me the next day, part of my bond conditions were that I cooperate with social services.
Oh.
So I had no choice but to go through a 6 month long social services case. And then by the end of it, when it was over, the only way that I was able to win was through that appeal. You have a 30-day window after they close that case that you can appeal it to Frankfurt.
But you
So
have to go through the whole thing first.
You have to go through the whole thing first. So it cost me 6 years of my life and $6,000 in attorney's fees to win in the end. But then, whenever they pulled all the documents, everything that they had used was all blank. Nothing was filled out properly. When Frankfurt got all that paperwork and saw it, it was a done deal.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's nuts. I think we understand a little bit more about what's like Letcher County a little bit. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure it's a beautiful place to live too. Like that's the thing is like everything is complicated. Everything's good and everything and bad is mixed in, and that sucks. Okay, this came from earlier on. Gavin, when sheriff called his daughter from the judge's phone, it may have shown that his daughter's number was saved as a contact. I think that's been kind of debunked, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think her number was a contact in his phone.
I think you're right. PJ, thank you for gifting memberships. You are awesome. Uh, no, Samantha, the daughter's name is not stored on the judge's phone. Let me just keep scrolling here. Royal Order of the Frank. Royal Order of the Frank is a regular on my channel, and I have asked aloud multiple times, Elizabeth, how does one join the Royal Order of the Frank? Because I mean, I want to join the Royal Order of the Frank. Anyway, Gavin, if I were as upset as the sheriff and if I had just done what he did, I would have had to leave the building just to get out of that space. A trauma reaction, as in I can't deal with this. What do you think about that, Elizabeth? That seems pretty astute.
Yeah.
Maisie, Gavin, is it possible the sheriff's wife was looking for help from the judge to leave the sheriff? This is actually this not actually, Maisie. That's a great question. This is a great question. Like it's a little town. You've got a singing dog in there, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, we used to have my brother-in-law and sister lived with us for a few months while they were looking for a home. And they had a little dog named Bella who was the doofiest dog ever, but she would sing for us. All we
Uh,
could just get her started, she would sing and sing. Loved her.
that's her name, Bella.
Is it? Okay, so it's a little town. If things aren't happy at home, especially with somebody with power in the county, is it possible that the sheriff's wife was like, "Hey, I need to leave the sheriff and I need help to do it"?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I had never heard, not the first whisper of any trouble in paradise when it came to them. So
Right.
if it's true that she did, it was something, in my opinion, I think it was something that had to do with this. I think that civil suit and the deposition, you and I both know that no lawyer asks a question that they do not already know the answer to.
Yeah.
And he had spent enough years in a courtroom to know that. And so the way that the deposition questions were asked to him may have revealed a little bit of what was coming down the road. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I looked up the case on Pacer. I haven't seen any deposition transcripts. Sometimes they show them as exhibits as you get
Hmm.
further down the line on the case, but I wasn't specifically looking for them either. I was really just kind of looking for the complaints and the amended complaints. I'll have to go back and see that because maybe that would be a little revealing the federal lawsuit.
Hmm.
Um,
And Ben had an uncle who was also revealed in the recordings that, in my opinion, I think that they've got some trafficking going on. If they looked on it, because Ben's uncle, he was kind of passing Sabrina off to his uncle then too, and she went, and she says it in the recording that she went and did it.
that is trafficking.
Yeah,
That is definitely trafficking.
he told her that his uncle had pull in the courthouse and could help her.
Who was his uncle in the courthouse? I mean, I don't need to know his name, but what did he have pull over?
Listen, it's kind of been very hush hush about who the uncle was. Even when, I don't know if you saw the interview with Ned Pillersdorf last night,
Mm-mm.
on TV, I think it was. He did an interview and he said that she went and was with the uncle, and they asked him, and Ned really didn't want to say his name. And he said, well, it's in the lawsuit. He said, we have revealed his name in the lawsuit. So if anybody wanted to go there and look. But then I looked, and we had a fella by the name of Bill Meade, who was the chief at the fire department in Kings Creek, um, who apparently is his Ben's mother's brother. So this would be his uncle.
Okay.
And he was charged with, let me see if I've still got it up here on my thing. He was charged with, no, I don't. I already took it off. He was charged with sexual abuse of a 14-year-old.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah. So he was just, and I think that was in 2023. It might have been earlier this year, 2024. But this, he was also charged. Bill
Okay.
Me,
Wow. Let's see.
and it was a
This,
completely different case.
yeah,
Completely different.
it would be. Yeah. Okay. So Mandy F says they put the camera in after the allegations, I believe. Is that I've
They
heard that a couple times too. The camera in the judge's chamber was added recently.
That was added after Ben Fields was convicted.
Wow. Oh, RAS Illusion says to the VHS point, if it's kept on analog tape, it's much harder for it to find its way onto the net. So I see the VHS use as a defensive protective measure. That's an interesting.
Well, and also, how many times do we see people that have CSAM and that kind of stuff? A lot of times they trade it. A lot
Yeah,
of times they share that with their friends.
yeah. PJ says this has been the best conversation. Thank you very much. All right. Lee says, question for Elizabeth. Do you think Fields pled guilty to avoid further investigation and others being found out?
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so there's a case. You're going to love this one, Elizabeth. There's an old case from a county nearby where this rancher had he had a deer ranch. So he was raising deer for at his farm for his hunting ranch.
Mhm.
I had never heard of such a thing, but that's what he was doing. And he had this buck that was on the cover of all sorts of like crazy magazines. It had this huge record-breaking rack, right?
Yeah.
So one day he comes home to the farm and that buck is nowhere to be seen, and like tranquilizer darts are on the ground. So somebody stole his buck. Okay. Long story short, they found the buck like 4 years later in the area inside a barn where it had been in a horse stall for years. It was fat, it was overweight, the whole thing. There's no way that the Yahoo that stole that buck did it by himself.
Mhm.
And when criminal charges were pressed, he apparently had all the money in the world to hire the best lawyer. And I mean, he took it to trial, but he had to pay his legal fees. And then when there was a civil suit against him by the farmer, the farmer was awarded some, it wasn't enough, but it was like some hundreds of thousands of dollars, and this Yahoo paid it. And it was like, oh, so there were 5 or 6 other people involved in this, all of whom had money, who he took the fall for. He never said anybody's name. He said he did it by himself. And but he paid the bill. Guy had never made more than a couple, like $20,000 in a year, but he came up with hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay off his civil suit. So Yeah, is this a bit? And by the way, he's charged with murder right now in Mississippi. That guy right now is charged with the murder of Kirby Carpenter in Mississippi.
Oh,
Anyway, maybe this is the deal with Ben Fields, right? Everybody's like, okay, you're caught. Just shut up and we'll take care of you.
yeah, because he didn't try to fight it. He didn't try to fight it at all. He didn't try to say he didn't do it. He pled guilty.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
and I don't think they even like the way that it looks to me. It doesn't even look like there was any negotiation done on the charges. You know what I'm saying? Because he
Yeah.
was charged. It looks like he pled guilty with what they gave him, what they first charged him with. Now
Well,
I
and
could be wrong, but
I think I think they gave him a sweetheart deal anyway. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Winona says, "Tell Elizabeth to stay safe. Corrupt people in power in a small town can be scary." I think I think you know that better than the rest of us do. I think
yeah.
that's. Let's see. Didn't Mickey state? Elf says, "Didn't Mickey Steins make a statement they're trying to kidnap my family?" Is that it?
Well, that's what the detective has said. That he made a statement saying they're trying. The first thing that he said was "treat me fair." And then he said, which I think that's kind of funny, he sure didn't treat Kevin very fair.
That's true. Yeah.
And then he said they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid. Um,
That's
but
what he said to detectives
that's what the lead detective testified to at the hearing.
at the prelim.
Hmm.
All right. Connie says, "Does Elizabeth fear for her life talking about this case online?" I get the feeling that you're not afraid of anybody.
I'm not scared at all. They weren't none of them like I kind of got blacklisted from that situation that I went through. You know, once I was on somebody's bad side, I never was able to work in this county with and I don't none of them like own my house. You know, I own my own house.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't have family members. None of them own my mommy's house. You know, they don't employ my mommy.
Right.
So I think those are the things that really keep people quiet for so long. Are, they're afraid that they're going to lose friends or they're afraid they're going to lose some benefit that they are getting.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
yeah,
didn't have
that's the leverage
none to
that they
begin
keep over
with.
them.
I didn't have none to begin with.
That's
So
funny. That's funny. Okay, here's a good question. Do you think more info about the scandal will come out?
I was absolutely shocked that this came out. So, and the more eyeballs on this, the more that's coming out. I cannot tell you how many people have emailed me and messaged me, giving me their firsthand accounts of a situation that they went through that they want me to share anonymously on
Yeah.
their behalf. Um,
Yeah.
and the stories that I'm getting are just um, unreal.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Kitty Mama says, "Elizabeth, how far back do the rumors go about Judge Mullen's chambers?"
I've heard rumors about the chambers for years and years and years. I just nobody was coming out and saying who was in the chambers. You
Now,
know,
you work with um, you work with this with the group of people that are interacting with law enforcement, right? I mean, this is a group of people that, in your professional capacity, not specifically in Letcher County, but you. I mean, as a counselor, I would imagine that they're in the Gantt chart of people that are spending time in the county jail or in the court system and need counseling having to do with addiction and things like that. I would imagine there's some overlap in that
well,
chart.
I haven't worked as a counselor in about 3 years, so it's been quite a while. But I did work with people. I worked at a homeless shelter too in Pike County, and so I worked with a lot of people, and I'm also a recovering addict myself. And so I've kind of got a really good insight on both sides of the fence.
So when you say that you had heard rumors for years, were the people that you were working with in your professional capacity, is that how you were hearing those rumors, or was it just in the community?
Just in the community.
Oh, shut up. Wow. I mean, don't
Yeah.
actually shut up, but yeah, that
Yeah.
it's just it was just there. It was bubbling under the surface.
Well, and I have said this before too. When I first heard the rumors, I didn't believe them because, I mean, he's a sitting judge. Who
Right.
would risk, who would risk all they had to lose doing something like that?
Yeah.
I just, and he had been so nice to me every time I had spoke to him and stuff. I just could not see him doing anything like that. But then I had to really sit back and think about it. They weren't approaching people like me. They weren't approaching people like my school teacher friend who's real high class,
Hmm.
uh, lady. Nobody's shaking a pill bottle at her, you know. And back in when it was all opioids, that was a big thing. You had all these dirty old men that would just, you'd be pull up next to them in a car and they'd shake a pill bottle just to see if that would catch your attention or not. And
Wow.
if you're an addict, that's going to catch your attention real quick.
Yeah.
And they're going to see that. But if you're not, then you're not even going to pay it no mind. You might hear it, but you're not going to know what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um something something occurred to me while you were saying, oh, okay. So I know that we talked about some stuff before we came on the air, and we don't have to talk. We don't want to like talk about that sort of stuff specifically. But you talked a little bit about power, and I think that this is important because it's something that I hadn't considered, and I often on this channel realize that I grew up in just a very sheltered, idyllic Norman Rockwell version of childhood with parents who loved me and protected me from the world.
Yeah.
Um, and I expressed to you that I, as a 49-year-old man, don't understand the need for somebody the age of Judge Mullins to be doing something like this to gratify his sexual desires. And you brought up, you're like, no, this it's not about that. It's about power. That is
Mhm.
the high, or that is the um, climax, or whatever you want to call it. Right? I mean, these guys are doing it because of the power and nothing more,
And
or
the
maybe a little
control,
more.
and the control, and the possession. That one of the things that Sabrina said in her audio interview was, or it might have been Jennifer, but one of them said Ben knew where I was at all the time because it was on GPS, and he would contact me every single day. And if I wanted to go anywhere, I had to get permission first,
Mm,
uh, and this was while she was having to do what she was doing with him.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so some people were saying, oh, this is a choice. And I keep seeing comments where people are saying, well, these girls had the choice and they could have said no. Well, that's not really true. And when they did do it, okay, so what was the payoff? So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have to he's going to know where I'm at every day. And you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like they just turned her loose and let her go wherever she wanted to go.
Yeah, I think that a lot of those kind of comments, and I think I'm guilty of making those comments over time. I think I've gotten a little more educated about it. There's this case up in Buffalo, New York, where I really got invested in it, and I'm still in touch with the victim's family. Love those guys, and she was an addict. She was a heroin addict, and she was turning tricks in order to pay for her heroin addiction because like she had to, right?
Mhm.
Um, and in the beginning of the those conversations, I would ask, why did she have to do that? Why did she make that choice? Why did she do that? And her sister Danielle would would tell me, because she was a heroin addict at the same time as Amanda, and she would be full on honest with me. No, Gavin, this is how you feel. This is what's going on. This is your, she would describe it in detail, and man, she has made diamonds out of the coal that was her life 15 years ago. But I I think that a lot of us don't understand just how just the desperation that is felt by these women, that just the absolute desperation. And I've come to the conclusion that I used to say things like, I don't understand why anybody would be an addict, which just, now that I say that out loud now, I'm like, oh, come on, Gavin. Now I'm to the point where I'm like, I don't know why somebody would try it the first time. I can intellectualize why. Yeah, peer pressure, and there's all sorts of reasons why. I would never make that choice the first time, but had I made that choice one time, then it's got me.
Yep.
And and now I don't, I've given up my choice. I these women were desperate. They were
Yeah.
absolutely desperate, and the power imbalance was off the charts.
Well, and two, they did say no. Jennifer Hill said, I told him no. I turned him down on Friday. And when I turned him down on Friday, he put me back in jail on Monday. And she, according to her, she sat there in that jail for 2 or 3 months after he took her back to jail. So then she gets back out on house arrest another time. He approaches her again. He proposes to her. She turns him down, but then she ends up following through and doing it.
Well, she
And
had just had 2 months to think about it.
well, and he ended up putting an escape charge on her anyway.
Oh
So
my
she said,
goodness.
even though, and that was how Ben got out of it. Like once he was done, it looked like he filed an escape charge on her, trying to cover his bases, trying to cover his own steps. If I'm not, I don't know if maybe I'm conflating the two. I don't know if Sabrina had two escape charges on her at two different times. I know that it said that she had been charged with bail jumping. Um, and then the other one was also charged with the escape. But I know that he had been in those recordings. As you listen to them, you'll hear it. She says, it didn't matter, even though, because he still put me back in jail.
Yeah. And that was probably he got off on that, right? That was fun.
So she
I
did.
bet that felt great to him in his
Well,
sick, twisted way.
and then he told, he used his, apparently, he allegedly used his sister who was over the drug court. Once he got her drug court, um, and she got out of jail, she says that she was leaving. She had just been released from the jail and she was walking away. And she tells the detective, you can go back and look at the cameras. You can see Ben come out the door and holler at me. And he walks up to me and says, hey, my sister's in there right now and she has a holder on you. You better run. And so she ran.
And that's
But
how she got the charge.
well, that's how she got the last one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But he told her to run. And then she found out that it was like apparently it was like a child support holder or something from another county. And she said, I didn't know that they could just fix that, and I wouldn't be staying in jail. But she had just left the jail. She had just been released from the jail. And he's walking outside saying, hey, My sister's got a holder on you, and you better get out of here before they see you and they're going to put you right back in. Run. And so she ran. She said, I was scared. She said, I didn't know what to do. You know, you're being told one thing this way and one thing this way. And these are officials. She kept telling that investigator, that detective, these were cops. He was a policeman. I didn't think that they would do something like this.
By the way, everybody, you can listen to these recordings on Hillbilly Crime. You should go over to the channel and take a listen. And next week, I'll be going over some of them as well. I won't be going over it as in depth as Elizabeth. So head on over there if you want to listen to the entire thing. It's nuts. And the what am I? Oh, kind of there's so many layers of stuff that kind of pisses me off about this, but the the victims in this case, like, I am really glad that the attorney general's office took it seriously, because so often I remember here in my county, I was doing some investigative work on allegations that were coming out of the county jail, and they were federal civil rights complaints coming out of the county jail. So I called the prison board. They, like, people that I mean, I see them all the time. We're friendly, right? We're not like best friends or anything like that, but I'm in that part of the community where people take me serious, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought, hey, I will give so and so a call, and I would like to see the inside of the prison, the county prison, because, man, they let the junior high kids tour the place. Maybe they'll let me. And as soon as he found out that I was investigating that, it's just like zip. And I got got a comment that was like, Gavin, they're inmates. They lie. Right. And that is what these women were up against time and time and time and time again. It's just very easy to discount their testimony because they've been in jail so many times, because they're addicts. And I mean, devil's advocate, the other side, a lot of times it's true, but it still needs to be investigated, and
Well,
I'm
I
really
don't
glad that
think.
the attorney general's office did.
Well, I don't think the attorney general's office did a very good job of it
Yeah.
myself, because they let it go. You know, the way that that detective speaks to these women in every single one of those interviews, um, it's like he tries to confuse them. He keeps referring to, she took the opportunity. So you saw the opportunity to not have to
Oh.
pay your ankle bracelet. So you saw the opportunity to flirt with him and start a relationship. When you really sit down and listen to these interviews, you might just change your mind.
Hmm. I thought I might. Yeah. Wow. Let me see if there are any other.
Because it was them, they were the ones responsible for doing this criminal investigation. And once they got the plea bargain from Ben, it didn't go anywhere else.
That's true. That is true. Okay, here is a comment from one of my mods. Her name's Autumn. Autumn is a friend of mine, and she also has experience with addiction. And she's been very open about that here on the channel. I'm not outing her or anything like that, but she's saying, I think what she's talking about is the first time when somebody uses an illicit drug. Some is peer pressure, a lot of is self-medication, and others to suppress trauma and feelings. Oh man, have you seen Dope Sick? It's a fictionalized accounting of the opioid epidemic. Right? That really opened my eyes. A lot of addicts started with an injury, a doctor's
Yes.
prescription, stuff like that. There's a lot of reasons outside.
Especially, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
especially around here because you had so many coal miners. And coal mining
Right.
is such a difficult job. Like, it broke their backs, it broke their knees down, it broke their bodies in half. Coal mining did.
Yeah.
So you had a whole lot of people with a lot of serious injuries who needed pain medication.
And we're
And
told it wasn't addictive.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of stuff's messed up. Uh, what do we have? Prince Charming's mom says Elizabeth's awesome.
No.
Uh, I wonder, like, I go into these handles a lot. Prince Charming's mom. I'm curious which Prince Charming she is the mother of. That would be nice to know.
She's been on my channel too, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Ask Elizabeth how this horrible situation can be rectified. What can be done here?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. I honestly don't know. Like I was just so disappointed when I heard these recordings on how that this is a detective with the attorney general's office. You'd think he'd know better,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
he
Go ahead.
well he didn't. So if we, it's always everybody wants to throw out some kind of a change. We're going to do this different, or we're going to train them on this, give them more sensitivity training, or or give them some kind
Yeah.
of training, and it doesn't work
It
you know
well it's not a thing. It's just an out. They're just trying to say something that people will be pacified by.
yes,
That's
yeah,
it's they're not saying anything there. I hate it when people use a lot of words to say nothing at all. You know, that
yeah.
well, that happens in politics a lot. Myrna says, Gavin, it seems like the murder of the judge opened a Pandora's box. I think she means of corruption on that town. Maybe we will hear the ex-sheriff talking about it in his trial. Who knows? What do you think? Do you think Sheriff Mickey Steins will take this to a trial?
I think that's the only way that we're ever gonna really know anything is if Mickey tells it. But, it just depends on how involved Mickey was, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I know none of us know, but what is your feeling on that?
Well, before I heard these recordings,
Uh huh.
I was pretty convinced that Mickey knew exactly what was going on in those judges' chambers the whole time he was bailiff.
Uh
I
huh.
think he knew exactly what was going on. At the very least, a witness, or a bystander, or quiet and just stayed quiet about it. But after I've listened to these recordings, I kind of feel a little bit differently about it. And after I've had some people reach out to me and tell me their stories.
You think that he probably didn't know?
No, I think there was a lot more people involved in this behavior than what we realize.
So okay, and I've had you for over an hour and a half. We're coming up on an hour and 40 minutes. So I want to be respectful of your time. So we'll wrap it up here in a second, but the courthouse is a small, we're not talking about the Supreme Court with columns and like this giant thing, right? It's a small little courthouse. 2 stories and a basement. Is that what I understand?
Yep.
Um I would imagine that people would see inmates being ushered into the area of the judge's chambers in the courthouse. Like,
Well,
what are the
you're
logistics of getting somebody in those chambers without somebody noticing?
very easily. The
You think
jail is
so?
Yeah, the jail is in the basement, and so um, the you come in the front door of the courthouse for the front, and then there's that side door that's on the sidewalk that Mickey came out of after, and it's right next to the smoking room. And then you have to walk towards the back of the building to get into the jail. But I'm sure they probably have an elevator inside there that probably goes all the way down to the jail, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe they don't. They might have to go in the front door the same way everybody else does. But all they'd have to do is come out of the jail, walk up that little sidewalk, in the side door, up the stairwell, and there's the smoking room and the judge's chambers.
Does the judge not have staff near his chambers? I mean, I guess this would be happening after hours too. It's probably not in the middle. It might be both, I guess.
In the newspaper article that I read, it said that he was taking Sabrina in after hours, after the courthouse was closed, and in the morning before it opened. That's what the paper said.
I wonder if there was any abuse of inmates while they were jailed, or if it was, hey, quid pro quo. I'll not put the bracelet on you, and you have to do this. I mean, I wonder if they're going in after hours and grabbing inmates from the jail below.
Well, during one of those recordings, you hear one of the victims say that one of the other inmates who she had met in jail had an affair with Ben. And then when she was arrested and taken to Letcher County Jail, his wife allegedly beat the crap out of her
In
in the,
jail.
yeah. And she was there for 3 months or something, 90 days or something like that after that. So, there's a whole lot of allegations here that I don't think have really been investigated, that have been looked into, or people just don't want to.
That saddens me a little bit, depresses me a little bit. Is the courthouse one? Is it the courthouse in historic building? Are you able to? Is it something that's been there a long time?
Um, I think it probably has been there quite some time. I'm not really sure how old it is, though. Um, I've got a 14-year-old dog that's laying here snoring away. I'm trying to nudge her and make her
That's what
quit.
the snort. That's funny. No, because out here there is a county out here in Pennsylvania that uh, now the courthouse is like, I don't know, 2 blocks away from the jail, and they use like a bus service to bring inmates to the courthouse back and forth. However, I know from personal experience, because I was allowed to go in there, if you go into the basement of that courthouse, there is a trail, like a tunnel that goes, this is pre-Civil War, goes
Oh,
all the way to the jail. And it's only 5 feet tall, so you have to duck, but that's what they used to do. They used to bring the prisoners underground. They'd
wow.
walk them those 2 blocks, and they even had cells on the sides of the tunnel. And now it's all for storage of old paperwork and stuff like that, but the bars are still there. So
Oh,
I, yeah, these old buildings, it would be really interesting to be able to see the layout of it and see how they got away with that. It's
yeah.
because
Yeah. Well, I think it was Sabrina, in Sabrina's interview, she says that it was in the car. Like Ben would come to her house in his vehicle, or in the sheriff's vehicle, or whatever vehicle he was using to come out and do house arrest stuff. And they went behind a church by her house and was in his vehicle. And then it said in the newspaper, when it was reading off his plea bargain, his guilty plea, he even admitted to doing it in the elevator at the courthouse. So what did you do? Did you push the stop button on the elevator between floors when people were there?
that's, yeah, probably. It's probably exactly what he did. Wow. Well, listen, man, it's 9:15 at night. We've been at it for a long time. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for the coverage of the case, guys. Go over to Hillbilly Crime. The link is in the title of this video. She has live streamed almost all the recordings at this point, right?
I've still got bins to go.
Got Ben's to go. So, and then next week I'll be going through some of the recordings, but not nearly as in depth. I won't be listening to 6 hours of recordings, I'll be taking little snippets. So for the real deep dive, head on over to Hillbilly Crime, and then come back next week, and we'll go over every night next week. I'm doing this case. Should be fun.
Awesome.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And hang out for just 1 second, guys. So I will be back tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is another Madeline Soto night. We're going to be listening to some recordings of the neighbors who talked to police about their experience seeing what was happening in and around Jennifer Soto's townhouse. So that will be at 7:30 tomorrow night. Hopefully you will join me there. Let me hide this off. With that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being here. I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.